So James Davis, then actually back to Stephen Metcalfe.
Chair, just rounding off the contracts issue with UKHSA, is it a real problem that you don't have the certainty beyond June? And if you were to have a contract rolled over or a new one, would the terms that you already have be adequate for you to plan for the future, do you think?
So I think it is challenging around the current contract. So from mid-May, we would need to look at redeploying the workforce in order to exit at the end of June. So it is a problem, and it also means the short-term nature of the contract extensions is we're paying a premium for some things, so such as our warehouse leasing on a short-term lease. So it does come at a cost.
Right. Thank you. And Sarah, please.
Yeah, similar. We plan in the NHS on a 12-month basis, so it is really helpful to have certainty for at least 12 months ahead, so we can understand how we are going to access our resources and how we are going to deploy them. So having a 3-month contract isn't helpful.
Mm-hmm. Okay, understood. And a much more general question, really, about the challenges that exist in being pandemic ready, so in having diagnostics capability for the UK. What are those challenges and how could they be overcome? To Nicola first, please.
So I think sort of looking back, the relationships with suppliers and industry is key. And I think that could be strengthened based on our experiences. And for us, sort of building a laboratory capability, understanding what was available within the market was really key. And that actually really drives the design and build of the laboratory and also the type of workforce that you need based on the technology available. So I think strengthening those relationships would certainly help us going forward. I think something that's been spoken about in this committee previously around the variety of test tubes, that did make a huge impact for us when you have such high throughput automated platforms to just receive these tubes and try and turn around them very quickly. We have to validate and verify. The manual handling becomes a lot greater, and also you run a risk of contamination in the facility. So that supply chain was particularly challenging. I think by the time our COVID laboratory came online, a lot of the broader supply chain issues had actually passed by the time we owned our facility.
Okay, that's really helpful, thank you. Are there any additional thoughts from Plymouth?
Just on the training and making sure, going back to the staff readiness, I'd agree with everything Nicola has said, but making sure we are continually training our existing staff in our hospital, our NHS trust, so that they can step into a pandemic resource should they need to. I think that's an important piece of learning that we are taking forward.
James Davis and finally Stephen Metcalfe.
Thank you, Chair. Vaccine development. You will be aware of a list of recommendations that was made by the leaders of the Vaccine Task Force in December 2020. Did the UK HSA have a copy of these recommendations before this committee published them?
No. I saw it for the first time last night, and I have read it in some detail, and I'm very interested in it.
And what would you say has been achieved in terms of delivering those, despite the fact that you hadn't had prior sight?
I would say at the moment this is in the context of me looking internally, because I want our organisation to be fulfilling the opportunity that it has with its science lead, particularly at our vaccine centre ourselves at Porton Down, and to be working with industry in a way which I think the public sector has not done before, and we have some very good relationships already. When I looked at that report, I would say firstly, I hadn't seen it before, and we have not taken in to UKHSA all the parts of Vaccine Task Force. So I think this is things like VMIC, which was referred to earlier. The big investments are sitting with OLS and not BAYS now, DICIT as the ongoing part. The Global Health Connection sits with the Department of Health, but clearly we work with them very closely. And the part that we took initially in this particularly were two elements. One is the developing Moderna strategic partnership, and I've been it's a very challenging system because it doesn't fit within normal civil service boundaries around risk and management. But for me, this was such an important thing about trying to bring new life science and new modes of making vaccines into the country that we have put a lot of effort into supporting that. The other element of it is whenever there is an incident, and we've heard lots of, I think Dame Anna and other individuals saying, and I've seen this in action, whenever there's an incident, everybody comes in together, works really well, and then when the risk goes to a degree, people fall back. I'm determined that we're not going to do that, but I don't have all the levers in UKHSA at the moment. So I was very interested. The vaccine agency, which is suggested, people will see it from the perspective that they have. So I think Clive Dix, as I've read it, and I'd be interested to speak with him directly, sees it from a particular angle. I can't see that because I know other parts of the system, so connecting with the NHS for delivering vaccines or whatever it may be, but I can see parts in it that we can deliver and we could grow, and so I'm very keen to take some of that forward.
Okay. So do you have a particular strategy in mind as to how to take those recommendations forward if you believe they should be actioned?
So it wouldn't be all of them, and I think we are, but in quite a small way. But if people want to encourage me more widely, the organisation is very keen to do so. We have developed, as I've said, a vaccine development and evaluation centre. We've published our own science strategy. We're majoring on pathogenomics. There's a whole load of scientific skills that we can push towards that. We've already held industry days at Porton, and we have a commercial directorate setting up. The reason I was so interested was because I am just now at the point, as we move to, COVID vaccine being one of the vaccines rather than the only vaccine everybody is talking about, I need somehow to ensure that we continue that work, have a just-in-time responsive approach for another pandemic, but also meld that into systems that we use routinely and improve those. So it won't be a vaccines task force, but we'll be creating a mini vaccines part of our organisation over the next few months. And I think we can, with that and the vaccine development evaluation, to take over some of those responsibilities.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stephen.